Hey there. Welcome to Talking Texas Politics with Calvin. So it is a day after the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk, and my heart is just aching for the Kirk family and his friends and those that knew him well. My heart is also aching for this nation and the political violence that is becoming so common, I guess. And we really need to be speaking out against that. For the Kirk family, whether you agreed with him or disagreed with him, he had a young family. He had a young 3-year-old daughter and I believe a 1-year-old son. I believe one of their birthdays was just here this week. And so there's a video that they play of his daughter. He's on some kind of set. His daughter runs to his arms and jumps in his arms and gives him this big old hug. And it reminds me of one of my fondest memories, and that's of when my daughter was 3 years old, and we would go to church, and there was 2 doors at church, and there was a front door and there was like a side door, and the kids' stuff was always over by the side door, and so I would always go out the front door, and my wife would walk out the side door with my daughter, and it became like a normal thing, and she was in her little dress, and she would just run and jump into my arms. And so as I sit here tonight, I know that Charlie's daughter's never going to get to do that again. And that just breaks my heart that, a life has ended so short. And so that is what I think of when I think of a young man losing his life in such a tragic way. Like I said, whether you agree with him or disagree with him, political violence is not the answer in this nation. We are the United States of America, and we do not do that. And when you think of our country and the foundation that our country was founded upon, I'm reminded of a time when I was a young airman in the United States Air Force. So I went in the United States Air Force in August of 1990, August 22nd to be exact. If you remember, on August 2nd of 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait and took over Kuwait. And then shortly after the first of the year, in early 1991, the war actually started. And I was in my technical training school. I was learning how to work on airplanes in Rantoul, Illinois at Chanute Air Force Base. And one of the individuals that I was in training with was from Georgia. We had a long weekend. And so he said, "Hey, I'm going to rent a car and I'm going to go to Georgia. You want to go?" And so there was a handful of us that said, "Yeah." So we all went down to Georgia. And we were walking around downtown Atlanta, and they had like some really cool Coke museums, and they had CNN's headquarters was there. And right before we got to CNN headquarters, there was a massive protest. And so when we got there, it looked like even like part of their building had been kind of ransacked a little bit. And they were burning American flags, and they were protesting the war. And it was almost an anti-American type, posture that these folks were taking. And so that bothered me. Now, keep in mind that I was 18 years old. I joined the Air Force when I was 17. I turned 18 in basic training. I grew up in a very small town in Oklahoma. There was a lot of things that I had not seen in this world at that point in my life. And I'd never seen anybody burn the American flag or behave in that kind of manner. And so that really bothered me. And I was talking to some of the more senior, higher ranking officials that I was around. And, they said something to me that has always stuck with me. And that is, when you raise your right hand to support and defend the Constitution, and you're willing to fight and die, that's all Americans. That's not just the ones you agree with. So even the people who burn the flags, I signed up to defend their rights to do that. And so those are two things that just come off of the page at me that reflect what we're going through right now in this assassination. And, today is September 11th, and that brings up a lot of emotions. But this whole thing just really brings up a lot of emotions and the hate and the vile behavior that we have going on in this nation. And I'm not pointing fingers at one group or the other. But what I will say is there is a group of people who are celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And if you are out there celebrating the assassination of a 31-year-old husband, father, friend, son, you are the fringe of the fringe. You are on the outer edges of the fringe. And I really think you need some sort of mental health help, because that is not who we are as Americans. And whether you agree with someone or you disagree with someone, political violence is not the answer. And so I'll go even one step further. If you are not willing to condemn the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I'm going to say you're fringe. And whatever movement you think you're helping, you are hurting, because the world is making fun of you as some crazy schizoid nut. And like I said, I'm hurting. My heart is aching for this nation and the direction that this nation's going in. It's getting to a point to where, you have to worry about this kind of violence in pretty much anything that you do. And so it's got to stop, and we've got to come together as a nation, and we've got to be one America. And that doesn't mean that everybody gets their way, because we're America, and we fight at the ballot box, and we have good public dialogue and good public debate. That's where we win or lose. We don't turn to violence. So God bless you. Thank you for listening, and God bless Texas.